Last time we saw our protagonist Han So-jin split the main fighters into two parties in preparation for the 10th floor, with the master starting 2 high summons to start filling out the parties. Seeing anything's high recent spending, Han isn't surprised, thinking how there's no way the tactics, PvP, upgrades, and control over heroes' lives wouldn't be fun. With a ding, the 2 3-star high-rank summons, a woman named Ioka and a man named Roderick, walk out, anxiously speaking to each other. As the woman goes to answer, she trips on her dress, blushing in embarrassment on the floor, whilst Edis informs Han that she must be an aristocrat, seeing her clothes. Han learns that the man was a guard in a big city and was aware of the master, summons, and synthesis, but not levels or skills. He informs the two that he and Edis will draw lots to split into their parties, with Han thinking the veteran guard is the superior choice to the immature aristocrat. Han gets Jenna to bring the lots, and as she approaches, both leaders spy the color of the lots, thinking it will be speed to decide who gets their choice. They both reach for Roderick's lot when they suddenly feel a burst of heat behind them and grab the other. Both holding the lot, Han asks Ioka if she's a magician, and she displays a fireball above her palm as an introduction. Edis and Han argue over the lot, unwilling to give up on the rare character that only has a low chance to appear. Ioka asks what they're doing, feeling weird at the situation, and Jenna, noticing both leaders cheated, remixes the lots. Slow to catch on, Roderick tells Ioka to think harder, and finally clocking on, she covers her mouth in repulsion at her fate being decided by others. Picking lots fairly the second time, Han reveals his lot and tells Ioka she's in his party, sending an invite. With the parties decided, Isel starts dragging people into the synthesis center to boost the newcomers. Han tells them to enter unless they want to end up like them, and the two enter and level up. Isel opens the crack in time and space to test the newbies, and as Edis's party leaves, Han asks Ioka about her magic. She instead argues about why she's here, and Han snaps her to reality, saying she must fight or end up like those she just consumed, before repeating his first question with a fierce glare. Discussing her magic, Han finds out that she can only use fire magic and has no support magic, which he thinks is unfortunate, but a mage is a mage and she is very confident in her fire magic. Edis's party return, looking satisfied, and Han tells his party, let's go. Waiting to enter a gate, Han thinks they'll be sent to the 4th floor as a test and tells Ioka she'll be fighting alone, bringing up her prior confidence in her magic. Unnerved, she says her magic is a bit special, before nervously saying, but they'll be surprised when they see it. As the gate is activated, Isel gives Han an apologetic goodbye as Party 1 gets sent to the 8th floor, shocking the 3 core members. Seeing an arrow speeding toward Ioka, Han pulls her head down, scolding her cluelessness. Their mission is to subjugate 27 level 9 goblin raiders, and with the charging cavalry approaching, he tells Jenna to shoot arrows. Forming up, he starts giving commands, but with raiders upon them, a melee breaks out, with Han and Aaron working together to dodge, block, and strike back at the raiders. Under pressure, he orders Ioka to cast, but she's frozen. He yells at her in action, and she replies she needs a minute to cast. Han tells her to just cast, slicing up another raider that charged him, and she begins chanting her spell. He gets Aaron to block the bolts aimed at Jenna so she can shoot back, and moves to block a team of raiders heading for Ioka mid-cast. Unable to stop them all, he tries to tell her to use a barrier, but at her unresponsiveness, he realizes that not only can she not cast barriers, but she's also completely immobile whilst casting, as the raiders collapse upon her. Fighting tooth and nail with a goblin and its mount, Han beheads the goblin and splits the mount in two, then rushing to the exposed magician, pulling her out of harm's way to her annoyance. But Han calls her a handful, baffled that she can't cast without any form of defense. She argues back, but he moves on, telling everyone to change locations. Dragging her behind him, he tells her to cast as soon as they reach the forest. Ioka continues to complain, but Han kicks her toward the forest, telling her she can't be treated badly if she dies. Then he faces their pursuers, entering a berserk state in order to buy time for the others. They attack him with hit and run tactics, leaving Han only able to dodge and block. Deciding this needs to change, he targets their mobility, slashing through their mounts, but outnumbered, he gets caught off guard by one of the raiders, ending his berserk state and pitting him under the claw of its mount. About to be ran through, he manages to free himself, shoving his sword through the mount and into the goblin. Now surrounded, Aaron tries to come to his aid, but Han stops him, saying he'll lure them away and he should deal with those that come his way. Jenna yells that the preparation is done and Han retreats with 2 raiders on his trail. Dodging their strikes, he jumps, somersaulting through the air before kicking off a goblin's face and charging with his shield up, screaming at the raiders to get lost. Seeing her spell complete, Han jumps to the floor, evading the raiders, and Ioka finally activates her spell with the command Ignite. A massive swirl of fire emanates from her, and then a burning pillar of flames launches forward, incinerating everything in its path, including the raiders over Han's head. In the ember-lit forest, Jenna and Aaron admire the power of magic. Han gets to his feet, seeing the remaining raiders still charging in, and orders the 2 to give him a hand finishing them off. Clashing with a goblin, Han is shocked at his failing strength due to his low stamina, but uses skill instead to put it off balance before an arrow tunnels through its skull and a flanking raider gets stabbed through by Aaron's spear. Turning to see his 2 allies proudly boast that if he's tired, they'll protect him. Leaping forward, Jenna pulls out her daggers, repeatedly stabbing a goblin in the face, wrestling it off its mount. Ioka prepares to cast again, and from the ground, Jenna, with a goblin locked in her legs, pierces the eye of the mount, heading for the mage. With Ioka about to cast, Jenna warns Han and Aaron to retreat. Flames in her eyes, Ioka clenches her flaming fist with the command Burn, unleashing a powerful AoE strike, resulting in huge explosions as our boys jump out of range. A fierce wave of heat and debris spreads through the forest as rocks and dirt bash against Han's shield. Seeing the resulting hellscape, Han wonders if it's over, but yet another raider bursts through the flames, stunning Han. Hands up, with flames raising around her, Ioka begins another spell, Transcend, sucking in all the surrounding flames into a spiraling twister, reaching the clouds above. So powerful that Jenna is left clinging to a tree to resist the pull. Ioka stands alone before the thick pillar of flame as she stares at the aftermath, while sweat drips down the shocked face of Han, with his shield still raised. Clearing the stage, Aaron and Ioka level up, and Aaron and Jenna praise the overwhelming power of Ioka's magic, with her happily laughing, saying "I told you, you'll all be surprised," before reeling back with an explosive nosebleed collapsed on the ground. Seeing her mana depleted state, Han notes her obvious weaknesses, but acknowledges that her glass cannon skill set is rare, and power is useful. Returning to the base, thinking he may soon not need to be the center of the party anymore. The next day, anything built the magic hall, with the training groups, magic research lab, alchemy lab, and library combining to make it. Ioka complains to Han, hard of breath, as they run around the training field, with Han noting that the training she has to do is nothing compared to what he does. Seeing anything log off, Han tells Jenna to make sure Ioka doesn't run away before heading off. Inside the magic hall for the first time, he looks around, picking up a book, but he's unable to read it. As such, he decides to start up a minigame to make potions. It's a rhythm game, and with perfect accuracy, he successfully makes a bunch of low-grade health potions. Estelle praises the greatness of Loki, and Han thinks anything might get suspicious, but it's better than dying. The next day, Han meets Jenna and Aaron in front of a brazier of scorching hot coal. He tells them to watch closely and plunges his hand into the brazier to their shouts of concern. Smiling like a maniac, Han tells them that if Ioka uses fire, they need to get used to it, holding his hand in the burning brazier for 10 seconds as the 2 grimace at his actions. With his hand out of the heat, it heals thanks to the system, and he tells them that they'll be doing this until they can endure it. He then grabs a dagger, stabbing it through his hand with a smile, informing Aaron that he'll need to do something like this until he gains pain resistance, telling Jenna that she doesn't need to, but will have to in the future. He then says that she'll instead learn switching that will allow her to quickly switch from bow to dagger, so she can help protect Ioka, as it's the only way to protect the glass cannon. Back in his room, he thinks Party 2 will be sent to floor 9, so they won't fight again till floor 10, where at least 2 parties will participate. As such, he needs to prepare thoroughly and begins the brutal training, screaming and cursing through the night before obtaining the heat resistance skill. The next day, in the training field, he confronts Ioka again, telling her to improve her casting speed and mana consumption, even at the cost of power. Insulted, she argues back, but Han stares her down, asking if she won't, and she caves, walking off in a huff. Ioka is a class 3-5 magician, meaning she can use ignition, explosion, and direct and modify the explosion. With the higher the class used, the more mana consumed. Moving on, he starts his and Jenna's training, sparring, with her shooting arrows at him. He cuts the arrows down mid-flight, armed only with a sword, unlocking the skill projectile defense, and leveling his beginner sword shield technique to level 6. Jenna rushes in with her daggers out, attempting to slash Han's face, but he deftly leans back to avoid the strike. She quickly grabs and notches an arrow, dagger now in mouth, and the two face off, bow drawn and sword extended, with Han astonished at her growth, thinking she would have been underdeveloped if not for his knowledge of the game. He compliments her skill and Jenna teases him since he said no compliments during training earlier, and Han tugs on her face like a grandma, playfully threatening her. On the other hand, Aaron is a normal 1-star. Though his spearmanship is level 3, it's the only skill he has, and he's still holed up in his room to learn pain resistance, whilst Ioka is in the magic hall training the way Han told her to, with Han thinking it'll be best if she just uses class 1 magic bar special cases. The next day, Edis's party returned from the 9th floor, battered and bruised. Han converses with Edis over what happened, and she explains they faced 50 goblins and the ground was muddy like it had rained a lot. Next, party 1 is called upon by anything. We see them return unscathed, with Ioka leveling up and earning MVP, now level 4, whilst Han is level 10, Jenna level 8, and Aaron level 6. The party has improved equipment now, with D-rank iron plating for armor, and Aaron and Han gaining daggers as support weapons. Additionally, 2 others from the training hall were added to each party, filling them out. The next day, both parties gather where the crack in time and space appears. Anything can either choose to enter the 10th floor now or wait a bit longer, with Han thinking that the newest party member is yet to adjust, and he still hasn't been promoted despite reaching his limit as a 1-star. But anything chooses the former, and his cell opens the gap between time and space. Han thinking this is just a game for him, and he can always get more heroes if they get annihilated. He tells his cell to inform anything to bring some of the items in the storeroom, and she sends the master a tip. Han then splits the 6 health potions, handing Edis 3 and cracking a joke. He tells her to head to the center of the area. They are separated upon entry, before turning to the warrior cell, declaring he will make sure they climb the tower. They arrive in a city of panic-stricken people who can't see or hear them, but they can interact with them, proven by Han kicking a frightened man. Looking around, Aaron and Han realize this is the city that was ruined on floor 5, but now is a time before it was destroyed. Settling his party down, Han orders them to spread out and scout for info, since the mission is yet to be revealed. Atop a bell tower, Han looks out to sea. Thousands of goblins with siege towers more than 10 times the size of the human army standing guard outside the city walls. Returning to the meeting point, Han finds both his and Edis's party gathered. Then, 3 warning pings signifying the highest difficulty appear, stunning Han, and the mission to defend the city and stop its fall is revealed. They share intel, with Aaron saying the refugees are heading to the city center and the goblins are coming from the north and east. Then Han explains that their mission is to defend the city and protect the twin goddesses statue, as its destruction will result in failure and instant death for all of them, so they can't simply retreat. Despite the massive numbers disadvantage, if they can stall or stop the siege towers, they can buy enough time. So Han orders Edis's party to go to the north wall and destroy the towers. But Edis is unwilling, thinking even if they buy time, they'll eventually get overrun. But trying to decipher a path to victory, Han runs through the hints from the lower floors, thinking of the river, collapsed dam, and heavy rain, trying to link the clues. Then Jenna comes to a realization, remembering she heard the sound of horses beyond the river on floor 7. This clicks it all together for Han, and he pulls Jenna's cheek for not speaking up sooner. This time he confidently tells Edis to buy them as much time as possible, no matter how tough it gets, until they can return, and Edis accepts the role, saying his party will have it rougher, so they'll do their best. On floor 7, the dam had already collapsed, so if what Jenna heard was reinforcements, then the reason the city fell on floor 5 was because the reinforcements couldn't cross the river, so their role is to fight through the goblins to the east and stop the collapse of the dam. Party 1 sets off, rushing to the outer wall, with Han giving orders to Jenna to scout from above, Aaron to open the gate, and Ioka to cast as soon as it opens. The troops at the gate panic, seeing the gate opening, and head over to stop it, whilst Jenna reports the horde gathered right outside the gate. Han and Jenna stop the troops reaching Aaron, whilst Ioka begins casting her spell. As the gate cracks open, an arrow flies through toward her, but Han catches it midair and sends it right back to where it came. Rain begins to fall, and Han worries if it will affect her flames. But with the gate open, the goblins rush in, and she unleashes her blazing spell, decimating the charging horde, then making it explode outside the gate, catching countless enemies in the blast zone. Ioka recharges with a mana potion, Han asking if she can keep it up, and she confidently replies, "Who do you take me for?" Turning back to the newbie, he yet to step forward, he asks if he plans to follow them, but seeing him fall into a state of fear, he tells him to go to Eddis and that he'll acknowledge him if he's still alive after the fight. No longer obstructed, the troops close the gate and Han walks through, facing the horde. With a shout from Han, Party 1 form up, and he tells Ioka to focus on casting to multiple areas, even if it's at the cost of power, and she confirms. With the rain getting heavier, the goblins pass through the fires, charging toward them. Counting down the 20-second cast time, Han faces the goblins head on, cutting them apart and protecting Ioka from their bolts. Aaron thrusts his spear through them, and Jenna switches between her daggers and bow, slaughtering them with both. Aaron almost gets flanked, but Han saves him, throwing his dagger into its head, then changing formations as Ioka unleashes her ignite spell, spewing out flames on the horde, opening a path for them to move forward. But with the flames extinguished under the rain, the horde comes forth again, and Han gives orders as he cuts apart the enemies before him. They hold for another 20 seconds, and Ioka unleashes her flames again, cutting open a path for them to run through. Prepare to repeat this brutal process over and over to break through the eastern horde and reach the dam. If you enjoyed the vid, like, sub, and comment below. Peace.